Welcome back to Artificial Antics, where Rico and Mike will talk about the implications and opportunities around artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning. On today's episode, AI in Everything, we talk to Wendy Reeves of the human side of AI about the opportunities, risks, and ethical concerns around AI omnipresence.
Hey everybody, this is Mike from Artificial Antics. Got another great episode for you folks. Today I've got Wendy from the human side of AI back on the show. We're really excited to talk about how AI is built into everything these days, and what does that mean, right, for our worlds, and what should we be watching out for? And that means on the opportunity side and on the concern side. So with that, I'll pass it over to you, Wendy.
Hey, Mike. I'm so happy that we have this time together. So, ladies and gents, thank you, anybody who's watching the replay here. If you have any questions or anything, please reach out to Mike or myself. But, as we've mentioned, the human side of AI and artificial antics are very closely aligned in our pursuit of knowledge and more so on the artificial antics side, what everybody's doing out there with AI and how to use AI responsibly. And Mike, much more so because he does his weekly newsletter called AI Bites that you can find on antics.tv. And we've aligned our human side of AI with artificial antics, and he's kind of become our primary podcaster. So Mike and I have already done one episode together. He's also interviewed a number of our co-founders, including Tim Hayden of Brain Trust. And we have decided, I think, every other week we're doing a Monday Zoom at 11 a.m. EDT. And we've decided we're going to record these and drop them every other Monday at 11 a.m. and maybe send you out a little teaser over the weekend, but then we're going to still have a clubhouse room on the alternate weeks on Wednesday at 11 a.m. And that said, we're going to do one of these partnership things, artificial antics and human side of AI. We're going to try to do once a month. So we'll alternate a featured guest on maybe a second week, and then on the fourth week, we'll drop another artificial antics and human side of AI collaboration. So that said, we have different vantage points, Mike and I. So I thought it would be beneficial for you guys because we discussed certain things, but I'm really not I don't want to say an expert because there are no experts in AI, right, but an AI enthusiast. We're both AI enthusiasts, but there are so many people much more embroiled in AI adoption, usage, et cetera, than I am. I'm super high level. But the idea of the human side of AI is that we have people at all levels and that you should join us where you are and chart your own path in AI, guided by the collaboration of a number of other people who are also exploring and learning on a daily basis. So I guess I'll turn it back over to you, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely, Wendy. And yeah, thanks for going through that. And just for folks, in case you didn't hear it, it's going to be every other Wednesday. That's at 11 a.m. And then the opposite Monday will be dropping from 11 to 11:30. Is that right, Wendy? The clubhouses on Wednesdays.
11, exactly.
And the either the featured guest or us recording is going to be on that alternating Monday. So yeah, with that, kind of let's jump into it. Wendy, we had a really long precursor conversation just talking about a various subjects, right? We talked a little bit about agentic AI. We talked about some of the ways that AI is being connected to either other AIs or to our data, right? Like our Google Drive. I'm not going to go too deep into that because we're going to follow up with a future episode. But let's talk about AI being built really into everything these days. I know about the Plaud Notetaker pin, right? Where you have a little necklace or you can put a pin and, maybe you're at an event. Maybe you're walking around having a water cooler conversation. See, in the past, a water cooler conversation would never be recorded, but sometimes they're really valuable and you might forget them. in this day and age, and again, for better or for worse, right? And that's kind of what we can talk about here. Your water cooler conversation might be, hey, let me hit my Plaud here and let's continue this really interesting conversation about something that may drive, us forward, right? So, AI is, there are AIs everywhere listening. We're having smart glasses. We've got AI in toys now, which I think is really, that's kind of, it's scary, honestly. You've got AI in drones, which I think there's some real benefits to that. And it is a little bit freaky, right? Like you've got Rico and I have talked about this actually. You've got these new jets that have swarms of drones. And this is like 2 years old news, right? No surprise, but they've got these swarms of drones that keep you protected from other aircraft or anti-aircraft missiles, right? The drones just kind of go and do what they need to do. And a lot of it is AI powered. And so you've also got, AI and things like, your appliances you're starting to see this, right? Robotic AIs going around and cleaning something, right? And I'm talking more than just your Roomba, right? They're getting a little more sophisticated. So they can clean the toilet now, which is a good thing because we hate that.
Sign me up.
Exactly. So, let's kind of talk about, so Wendy, I'd like to get your take on the high level overall of AI being incorporated into so many things and where you see the opportunities and then also maybe some of the risks and concerns, privacy, security, whatnot.
Yeah. That's a great idea because, like I say, I'm such a novice. Is that the right word? And I hear bits and pieces, like things that I read, especially in LinkedIn. That's my kind of preferred place to absorb the best content, in my opinion. And I see so many enthusiasts, so many really, really knowledgeable people sharing things that are a little bit too detailed for me now. I don't understand all of it yet, but I'm definitely on that path. And conversations like this, I think, will help us, those of us that don't know that much, to further our knowledge, right? Because collaboration is the thing. And that's my jam too. When you get two or more of us together, I mean, whether you're talking about prayer or you're talking about collaborations, get two or more people together, and that's where the magic happens, right? So what I'm hearing things and from a number of different areas. So I know what you talked about, and you mentioned the Plaud, and I told you that when I was in my AI workshop this week with a number of people in our industry, that one of them uses a limitless, and that one I priced it. It's like $400, and it's really cool because you can record whatever. And you mentioned Plaud, which is like $1.50, $150, which is much more. I'm not going to drop $400 on something I'm not sure I'm going to like it yet. So that would might be adequate, right? Why get something if you just want to record stuff now and then? So, and what I thought, like you mentioned, conventions like Fred Thorne, when he goes to conventions or when he went to some past conventions and he goes around the exhibit hall, or whether he's talking with the dealer or whatever he's doing, he's not sitting there taking notes. He's not doing anything. Right. But I'm telling you, that guy establishes rapport with people so easily, just like a Santa, but he forgets the names, right?
Of course.
So the idea when he's going around and meeting the vendors even, and of course getting his swag, of course grabbing a selfie, he doesn't remember the names or maybe the details or whatever. So the idea of something that can record that, so that the idea with AI is that what we want to do is we're trying to take the tasks off of our plates, in my understanding, my grasp of it. So you want to control the controllables, you want to automate whatever you can automate that is going to take some of the mundane tasks that you can automate off your plate, so you can have more time to coach your teams, to be creative, to blow up your business, to have some fun, to do whatever you want. So to that end, I think it is wonderful that all these things are coming out, but we have to be careful because they're changing rapidly. I mean, look at what we had 2 years ago, whatever it was. Used to be super, super not proven. I mean, no really track record established yet. So we were taking risks that we knew not of at that time. Yeah. Now we're discovering through conversations with people that are about data security and fraud prevention and et cetera, we're discovering more and more that there's much more that we have to take into consideration when adopting any kind of AI. So for me, what I'm seeing getting connected, another thing on that same meeting is they talked about how if you're doing content, that whether it's, I think it was Claude, and then they sort of mentioned Gemini, but they said that if you're doing, for example, I was asking what kind of apps are better for doing different kinds of things.
Mhm.
And they mentioned that when they do content creation, many of them use Claude because it can link to their Google Drive. So, but then we were talking to someone else that said there are considerations about that. So in my world, I'm hearing all these terms, but I don't necessarily know the risk involved in connecting your data and that type of thing. So those are the questions that I have at a beginner novice level.
Yeah, no,
Does that
that's a
help?
good that actually that helps, and it's a great starting point. So I'll mention a couple of things here. There's a social aspect too, and a consent aspect to especially these note takers and recording devices. So I'm going to give you a quick story about. So All In Podcast, there are 4 guys that run that show. I think it's the #1 podcast in the world. Anyway, they're great guys. They're all these people who started the eBays and the whatevers of the world, right? But the one guy was talking about how he was at an event and he's sitting there with, other business people at a table, and somebody came up to him and he saw the pin on his, jacket or whatever, and he knew what it was. And the guy comes up, starts talking to him and says, "Oh, do you mind if I, record this?" And I think the guy's name was Jason. And he's like, "Well, that depends. Do you mind if I punch you in the face?" You know what I mean? Because sometimes people aren't real open, and these are tech forward people. But it's like, do you really need to record everything? There's an attitude, there's a stigma around it still. And this is why with the pins, one of the things they had mentioned on that same exact episode is that they always need to ensure that these pins or any recording device, whether it be glasses or a pin, can have a visible light that's blinking or doing whatever to let you know, the other person that's standing in front of you, let you know that they're recording, right? And then, Wendy, Thomas Howe, and he's really big into consent, right? So he's built a really good framework and architecture around not just recording and giving AI the memory, but also ensuring people's consent, and then ensuring that if they want to revoke that consent at any time, that I think is extremely important. And Tom is going to be on the show in the next month or so. We're going to actually talk about consent because that's really important.
Awesome.
Large companies are getting fried in class action lawsuits because they're not getting consent, or they're getting one party consent and they need 2-party. Not every state is one party consent, right? So there are a lot of legal battles. And I talked to Vincent Allen when he was on the show a little bit about consent. He mentioned Patagonia is one of those, right? So these big companies that where they're recording the calls, even if they say your call is being recorded for quality assurance, that's not good enough anymore. Right. So that's one of the trends that I've seen is, people are going really far in a good way with consent. And Thomas is probably the most forward thinking on that I've met.
Awesome.
Now let's talk a little bit about, AI and toys. What are your thoughts there and some of the concerns, right? Because that's starting to be a thing, right? What are your thoughts?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know exactly what you mean. I mean, I know like my daughter just had a baby back in October, my first grandchild, and I know that I bought the baby this cactus that can record your voice and then play it back. Is that what you're talking about? Because my concern would be, what if the kid somehow, whatever the AI in the toy is, what if the kid somehow unwittingly activates it and there are other conversations that recorded, and then where does that information go?
Yes, these are my exact concerns, and And, that's the thing, when you've got AI and a teddy bear, this is like the shows where the teddy bear's on the mantle and it's recording everything, except we're buying these for our kids, right? Like, it's probably a little more than the recording thing that we were just talking about, like where you record your voice and whatnot. It's more like the dolls, the toys and whatnot will interact with them. And there's a ChatGPT type thing. I'm just going to say that because, again, artificial antics is all about making AI approachable. So I'm going to give the facts and my thoughts in the easiest way to consume. So just consider ChatGPT is in your kid's bear, right? That they're talking to, right? What are the implications of that if it goes off the rails?
And you know what that makes me think of right away, and I've heard him say it a couple of times in his posts, is Tim Hayden always equates OpenAI to public toilets.
Yes, exactly. Right. Do you use them? Yes, because they're a necessary thing sometimes, right? Do you trust them? No, you really don't, right? You don't know what's there. You don't know what's been there. You don't know what's going to be there or what, so absolutely, you do have to really think about this. One of the things that I've talked about before, and I have an article on it, is, scaling your AI solutions. And when you're building an MVP, like, or even let's say a proof of concept, let's take it to that level. OpenAI can be really valuable to proof out your concept very quickly, right? But you want to make sure that you're using what's called synthetic data, which means that you don't have, PII and people's names and addresses and emails in there, right? But to build out something and test a theory, right? Okay, we could do this with an LLM and transcription and whatever. But you don't want that to be the final product you're going to release ever with real customer data. Tim talks a lot about first-party data, keeping your data private, keeping your data out of these public LLMs. And I 100% agree. Working for a communications company, for God's sakes, we're not just throwing people's stuff into OpenAI or ChatGPT. It's very important not to do that. So as you start to take it from a POC to a finished product, this is where there are layers of bringing that data in and that strategy into your own private walled garden infrastructure for real, right?
So to clarify, POC is proof of concept.
That's right.
For those that don't know. Yeah, okay, yes. Great.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I'm a nerdy tech guy, so sometimes I try to make AI approachable, but yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. No, if I ever throw an acronym out, we can always explain that acronym. So
like MCP that you mentioned, or did you say MVP?
I said MVP, which is the minimum viable product, right? So yeah, so this is like with software. What do we deliver that we have to have every feature in there or it isn't really viable, right? That's your minimum viable product, right? So perfect. But even before that, you build a POC, which is a proof of the concept. Can I even do this?
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So there are steps and stages, right? And thanks for clarifying that. MCP, just since you already said it, is something called Model Context Protocol. And what Model Context Protocol is doing is it's standardizing the way that AIs talk to each other and also the way that AI applications talk to data sources and have access to data sources. To your point, you mentioned something about Google Drive and Claude. Well, Anthropic, who makes Claude, is the designer and inventor of Model Context Protocol. And so this is one of these really hot things. I just did a talk on it a couple of days ago in person for a local Detroit meetup here. And this is something that is catching on. And so you've got Google now is using this. So Anthropic originally came out with it, but Google, it's built into Google and their AI applications like Gemini. They're also their back-end applications, like on their Vertex AI. It's built in now to ChatGPT. You can set up your own MCP server. So if you had, let's say you had a line of business system that, again, there's a safety factor here, folks, a risk versus value, right? I think Tim has mentioned this before, and we're going to do a follow-up on this, but you could, in theory, connect your line of business system to your Claude chatbot and say, how many customers, did we gain this month? Or, how many customers do we have with an outstanding bill? How many customers that are in collections? And it's just a really quick, they just snip together, right? So MCP is really awesome for this. The demo, I did a couple demos at my talk. One of them was for a conversational intelligence MCP, and I it's all fake synthetic data, but I faked, a couple hundred calls from a fictitious company called Feel Good Spas, and then I would ask questions like, how many calls did I take in whatever, just in a chat bot, right? Like in Claude, I did it in Claude. There are a couple other places, pretty much anywhere now you can link this data in. I asked questions like, hey, what customers should I call back because they were unhappy? Just being able to natural language ask that question. That's really valuable. And it came back and said, these are the calls that you should review and call them back because they were pissed off, excuse my language, about, having to pay a fee even though they canceled, because what I did with the fake data generation was I generated calls that went really good, calls that were about bookings, calls that were about canceling bookings, calls where people were upset. And I tracked all the sentiment in there. So then when I had that conversation and I built that MCP server around it, I could ask the questions and the data was already there. So then the LLM, which is like your ChatGPT, GPT, your Claude, then it can take the data that comes out of that, Wendy, and then it can give you back like a natural answer like you'd see from, your ChatGPTs or your Claudes. So it makes it more of a natural flow rather than you having to go and be a nerd and have it's really like, do I get my data scientist involved in this? Or do I just have, an MCP server built around this and then I can get my answers? There's still data science in AI engineering and building this whole flow. And that's where we're going to go further. We're going to talk to Tim Hayden about this in an upcoming episode here. And we're going to go a little deeper about how you do this right at an enterprise or a small, medium business size level, because there are considerations and you shouldn't just link everything.
And is that what you recommend? Like, I know so many people now for the last 2 years since we started the human side of AI are getting into CDPs and building CDPs. But now, am I right in assuming that the best solution or the best overall move is the MCP over a CDP?
Well, no,
or not necessarily.
No, it's like a part of a solution, right? Like this is where you'd get like a brain trust partners, Tim Hayden or somebody to design a solution. And the MCP would be part of the solution.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense. That makes sense.
That's a great question, though. Let me just mention that you could have an existing CDP with existing data in it, and you could create an MCP server to connect your existing CDP with your other systems. How valuable is that? So it's part of the solution. It's sort of like the hub with a lot of different spokes that can come into it, right?
Perfect.
So, yeah.
Okay, and that begs a lot of questions. So I'm looking forward to the episode with you and Tim Hayden.
We'll go deep. We'll go much deeper.
Yeah. I mean, even like, oh my gosh, even like, because I have so many questions that people ask me, like, for example, even with the usage of their data, everybody's so worried about data privacy, data governance, and even as a solutions provider with either EIQ performance with our AI-powered solutions or with BDC Angels, where we have the human side, we have the agents to do various things. Mm-hmm. I have vendor partners, not even vendor partners, also primarily because we work with dealers, but then also dealer partners that are concerned with the privacy of their data. And I remember years ago when we did our first remote team, we had someone attached to a company server, like they had a computer and they had like a drive X, a drive H or whatever, where they had to log into a remote desktop. connection to keep the dealership data on their server. So is that kind of something that we're working toward, just for a little snippet, but not a deep dive with an MCP, the same idea of
Yeah,
protected server?
absolutely. And the beauty
Cool.
here is that you can still keep your data in those private locations, and then you have authentication and security, which is really
Awesome.
important. Then you have authorization. To your point, what lends itself to what does this exact person, Mike Onslow, have access to? If so
Perfect.
it keeps everything very segmented and ensures that your data stays where it needs to stay, right? So yeah,
Awesome.
that was great.
So I suppose our audience should start to consider whether they have questions, and what questions about MCP from their the amount of knowledge they have today, in preparation for the call you have coming down the pipeline with Tim.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will mention this too. One of the things that I'm seeing Model Context Protocol, or MCPs, replacing are some of these what would be in an automation workflow, right? Like where you're, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to go connect my Salesforce in. Now I'm going to go connect whatever in, right? And having to do all that kind of in a workflow builder. MCP allows you to keep your AI agent or your AI application, but a lot of times it's an agent, kind of in the center of things. And then it can reach out, and depending on what question it's been asked, it can decide what tools do I have access to and which do I need.
So that makes me think science fiction, when you see these movies where people are going up there and touching and moving screens around with their fingers out there.
Minority Report is I love that movie. I'm sorry, that's the big one. That's the big one I always think of. Erin and I,
Cool.
Erin, my wife, Erin and I love that movie. That's one of the only DVDs. It's probably still on our DVD shelf that we never actually watch anymore. But Minority Report was great for that. But yeah, it is kind of like that, right? You've got your AI agent there, and it's reaching out it's figuring, oh, I need this, and oh, I need this. Let's pull these in, and now we make this third thing based on the two things. So we'll definitely go deeper into this next time, Wendy. I will link in the show notes here. I did a talk a couple of days ago on Model Context Protocol, and I went a little deeper. I will go ahead and share my notes on that with folks so that they can take a quick look. And then if they have questions, to your point, let's go ahead and actually get a list of those so that we can address those when we meet with that greater group of people. And it's definitely, I think, going to be at least Tim Hayden. There may even be other folks that want to have the conversation here. So
awesome, and they should reach out to you as well. So and if our human side of AI audience wants to reach out to you, Mike, how do they do that?
Yeah, so there are two easy ways to do that. One is to hit me up on LinkedIn. It's just Mike Onslow, all one word, MikeOnslow. And then you can also email me, mike@antics.tv, ANTICS.tv. Either of those ways, perfectly fine. Connect with me. I'd love to have some conversations with folks. And my whole goal with Artificial Antics is to make AI accessible and approachable for folks. And then,
Wonderful.
Wendy, do you want to go ahead and let people know how they can connect with you on the human side of AI for the folks that may not know about that yet?
Yeah, so this is my cell phone on the screen if you want to text me directly. I'm a 24/7 entrepreneur, so reach out anytime, 414-303-0493. And our website is www.thehumansideofai.com. You can go there to join our community. We'll ask you for your email address, and that way you'll get updates and notifications of a newsletter that joint newsletter we have coming down the pipeline as well. But for the meantime, we fully support and recommend go to antics.tv and register for the AI Bites newsletter that comes out weekly from Artificial Antics.
Excellent. Well, thanks again, Wendy, for coming on the show. Really excited to release this. I'm excited to hear some of the questions that folks have about Model Context Protocol as we start to shift into this next show. And have a wonderful rest of your weekend. And we'll talk to you soon, Wendy. Thank you.
Yeah. One final thought. So we're doing this on Father's Day Eve. When we air, it will be the day after Father's Day. So hope you all had a great Father's Day.
Absolutely.
That's all I got.
Yes.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. We'll see you We'll see you soon on the human side of AI.
We'll see you soon, Wendy. Talk to you later.
Thanks,
see you,
Mike.
folks. Yep.
Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. Stay connected with us on Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn for all the latest updates, and check out antics.tv or our YouTube channel at Artificial Antics. We'll see you back in the lab soon.